The number of power sale properties keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. And you need how many showings to get your home sold? Yes, all this and more with a good friend and mortgage broker, Mr. Dion Beg, right after this. Here we are, my friends, back with our favorite mortgage broker in all of the land, Mr. Dion Beg. How you doing, my man?
Hey, Gary. Pretty good. Another week, a couple more mortgages. People are buying, people are refinancing.
Yeah. And the internet trolls are out there. we posted a video last week and we got lots of comments on it. And these are all people that perhaps haven't followed us over the last 4 or 5. Well, you and I have been doing events for almost 10 years together now. So it is what it is, right?
We only got famous 3 months ago, right?
I guess so. I guess so. It's all good. Hey, everyone's got an opinion, and that's okay. Dan and I are here simply to digest what we're seeing in our own businesses, and of course, how to help our clients interpret the really the market and help them to make the best decisions for them individually. And everyone's going to have their own decision of what they do and moving forward, right, Dion? There's lots of.
Yep. 100%. And in fact, while I remember, just this week, we got 2 purchases over $1 million that are insured purchases. I think we've sort of touched on this in the past where, there was this limitation on, insured purchases being under $1 million. They changed that at the end of last year. And what I'm seeing now is, people were questioning, okay, how many first-time home buyers who don't have 20% down are going to buy over $1 million. And just in the last week, we've helped 2 separate couples who have good household income over 300K, but just didn't have the down payment. They're actually out there buying now. So, as much as there are the naysayers, there are also the people who are utilizing the new products and sort of new guidelines and getting out there and buying in the market. Like we said last week, we don't know if we're at the bottom, but smarter people, maybe people smarter than us, are buying in this market.
Yeah, for sure. We got lots that we want to cover this video. And we're going to look at the number of showings in a particular town of Stouffville and what that means to you as a seller and perhaps a buyer as well. A short little conversation around power sales. We're going to dig more into that and how that's shaping the market and that sort of thing. Dion, there's lots of stuff out there. And I know you've been working on some really interesting transitions for people as the government and other agencies and other big businesses are telling their workforce, hey, you've got a desk down here in our office. You need to sit at it. And people are coming back to work. And what's that doing to our market as well, Dion?
Yeah, well, again, a couple of months ago, you and I spoke about the fact that some of the major banks are calling people back into the office in downtown Toronto. And there was a lot of resistance there. In fact, this is a funny story. I went to one of our lenders for an event, and I walked into their lunchroom, and their lunchroom looked like a hotel buffet. And I'm like, what is the story with this food? This place looks amazing. And they went on to explain that they're trying to entice their workers back into the office voluntarily before dropping the hammer and saying, you have to come. But now I think, the incentives, whether or not those lunchtime incentives are there anymore, people have been forced back into the office. So that's happened on the private side of things. But more recently, at a provincial level, on the public side of things, Doug Ford has said that he wants all employees who may have historically been working from home to get back in the office. And again, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think within the next couple of weeks, he wants them in the office at least 4 days a week and then building up to 5 days a week. So for many people who have had that ability to work from home for probably 5 years now since COVID, that window is closing.
It is closing, and it does have a ripple effect. It's one thing to say, hey, you've got to come back into the office to the fifth, getting to the 5th day a week. And for those that didn't make a transition 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when they thought to themselves, hey, we can move from our Toronto or our in-city home and move to a home, outside the city where we can buy a bigger house and have more land and maybe closer access to some of the outdoor life and things like that. I know you're working with somebody that moved from Toronto to Barrie, and on when you say it out loud, yeah, that sounds like a great move. However, when you've got to go back into the city now almost every day, that's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah. So look, I've been working with this couple for maybe 10 years or so before they had kids, and now they've got their kids. And what happened was I helped them buy their first property in downtown Toronto. It was Etobicoke, actually, and it was a standard wartime bungalow. So you're 1,000 square foot, 3-bed, 1-bath bungalow. Red brick. You see them everywhere. If from memory, I think they paid something like $450, and they sold it at the peak of the market in 2020, 2021. They sold for nearly $1 million. So they doubled their money in a very short period of time. But the reason they were selling was because they had that family, that growing family, two kids, and they saw the opportunity to work from home. So they moved to Barrie, right? And so they traded up their 1,000 square feet for 2,500 square feet, 4-bedroom, double car garage by the lake, and as did many people during that time of COVID. But yes, we in the conversation that we just had in the last week, which was really just a conversation that was supposed to be about renewal and getting the best interest rates. What I learned was that the wife in this couple is one of these government workers who has been asked to come back into the office. And when we did the math in terms of like how much travel time that this person will be on public transport, it's going to be over 2 hours in one direction. So that's 4 hours a day sitting on public transport. And, my opinion of this is that's just insanity. Why would you take somebody who's a productive worker and have them sit on public transport for hours a day? It's going to lead to, in my humble opinion, employee dissatisfaction, productivity loss, all of that. I can see all of that happening. And I've been reading some articles about why why Doug Ford has asked people to come back into the city. And apparently some very big donors to campaigns own commercial building downtown. Now, whether or not that's true, hey, it's an interesting thing to throw out there. Let's see what the haters say about that.
That's right. The conspiracy theories are coming out now.
The conspiracy theories are out there. But yes, I mean, as you can imagine, when you're now living a certain lifestyle, which requires a 20-step commute, which takes 1 minute, from your bedroom to your office, to a 2-hour commute each direction, and time away from your family. I mean, it just sounds just like a terrible lifestyle, unfortunately, right?
Well, and we mentioned the ripple effect, and what does that do to your transit time, as we just talked about, 2+ hours in one direction. The strain on the highways and all that kind of thing. Just you might already be back to work, and you may have never left. Your travel time is going to increase because of the increased travel for everybody else as well, and that's that ripple effect. And I wonder, Dion, and you and I were talking off camera a little bit as well about this. Should those people that perhaps moved, we'll call it 2 hours away from their head office, I wonder how many of those people will look for an alternative position locally, or some, a drivable distance that better suits their family needs. And I wonder how much of a transition we'll see over the next, several months on that type.
Yeah. So again, this conversation was supposed to be just a simple conversation about interest rates, but and our job as mortgage brokers is obviously to get you the mortgage, but also understand what's going on in your life right now and what's likely going to happen in the next 5 years, the term of that mortgage. So the conversation quickly turned to that, Gary, which is, okay, are you going to continue to do this commute? I can imagine that in a couple of months from now, you're going to probably start to hate your job because of the commute. And are you going to potentially look for something more local? And so we explored that. And if that was to happen, that would likely lead to a reduction in income. Okay. So what we decided on the call was, while we have this very strong income from this downtown job, now would be the time to go and establish a line of credit on their principal residence, giving them access to $200,000, which in my mind is just a buffer, emergency fund, safety fund, so that if you want to go and explore other options, you know that you're not living paycheck to paycheck. You know that you've got, a couple of years worth of savings in the form of HELOC in the background to get you through any sort of transitionary periods. And, I remember one of the early coachings I got around investing, which was, make sure that you have some cash behind you, because it allows you to make decisions from a more confident position. It's when you're making decisions from a position of scarcity that you may make less than perfect decisions. Whereas if you build this strength behind you and say, look, I'm going to go for these jobs, I'm going to leave this job because it's going to be better for my family, but I need to know I've got some safety behind me, then that's what this line of credit will create, at least on a psychological level and a real financial level for this family.
Yeah, fair points. Yeah, I think, I don't feel we're going to see a big shift of this whole workforce moving from that, we'll call it that downtown job, to one that's perhaps more local. But there will be some, there will be some that make that movement where they have that flexibility, as you suggested. Now, should that position, or should that person, or maybe you're that person, decide, okay, I do need to sell my home because I need to move closer to my work. What does that look like, Dion? And the timing, and how long is that going to take, and how do I prepare for that? And one of the things that I like to do when I'm talking to our agents and specifically our sellers, I'm going to share my screen here, Dion. And one of the things what we're looking at here is Broker Bay app, and this is kind of the backdoor version of it. And we can pull some stats. And what we're actually looking at is the listings in Stouffville. Broker Bay is what realtors use to go book a showing and register offers and that sort of thing. And I'm kind of pulling the curtain away from our industry here, and that's an important thing. I want everybody to focus on the far right here, where average showings before sold. And over the last 30 days in the town of Stouffville, average showings, number of showings that a home had before we saw an offer, or I should say got that home sold, was 32 showings. So if
that sounds like a lot. Is that a lot?
That is a lot, my friend.
Okay.
If you have a home for sale, or you're about to take one to market, and in the town of Stouffville, if you're not getting close to that number, you've got a marketing problem. And more importantly, what that spurs on to is a pricing or evaluation conversation that you need to be having. And I can tell you right now, I just looked this up, Dion. There's currently 178 listings in that little town of Stouffville there, which is a suburb of Toronto, if you're not familiar with it. We have these conversations to help set expectations. Just know that if you're a seller, buyers are also understanding this information as well.
Yep.
Right.
And so have you seen any major price reductions that come to mind?
We've seen homes listed, let's say during the winter or in the spring, come back to market over the last several weeks. We'll call it September, at a couple of $100,000 price difference.
Yeah, that's not small. That's pretty big.
As you know, let's understand what the town of Stouffville is. It doesn't have a lot of entry level homes. Your entry level is about $950 on a good day. Okay, there might be some slightly less. You can see the average sale here is $1,055,000. Okay, but most of those homes are about 1.1. In fact, if I go pull up, a detached. If we just look at a detached 3-bedroom home, you're probably at about 1.15. There's a lot of homes in that 1.4 to 1.7 range as well. That's what that town of Stouffville is. I lived there for many years, and so that's why I'm very familiar with it. Have these conversations. If you're a realtor, have these conversations with your sellers and buyers.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you that this $1 million purchase that we just got this week here, one of them was in that region. I think it was Newmarket or Stouffville area, over $1 million. And they missed out on 3 properties, interestingly. Okay. And they had to waive their financing condition in order to win this deal. So that is interestingly still happening in the face of, the fact that, prices are sort of slumping potentially, still good properties priced right go into multiple offers.
Well, I can tell one of my colleagues did do exactly that. Not that they had multiple offers, but they priced it right. And there was a home right next door to them, literally one, a football throw away. And they've been on the market for quite some time. He looked at the market and strategized with the seller, priced it accordingly, and got it sold within 14 days of it coming to market. And just as you said, when things are priced accordingly to the market and what buyers' expectations are, things do sell. Okay. This is a can of worms, and we're only going to just crack the lid because we're going to dive into this much, much deeper and talk about it's always an exciting topic. People feel that it is, and that's power of sale properties. And we keep seeing headlines and things like that, it doubled, it tripled since last year and that sort of thing. What we have to remember is our power of sale properties here in Canada, especially in Vancouver and the Toronto area, are always, we're not talking 3 or 4% like they do in the States. We're talking 0.3 or 4% of the market. And we just have to have that clarity. However, it's still on the rise and we still have to pay attention to it. And I'm going to share my screen here, Dion. And this is a report that you and I both like to read from Ben Rabideau, and talk us through this and what's going on from even a private sector perspective.
Okay, so just from the gate, power of sale means that mortgage payments have been missed and the finance company is taking the property to market to sell so that they can recover their mortgage at the very least. So that's what a power of sale is. What you see here on screen is a graph which is showing the increase in the number of power of sale. Okay, and you can see it's growing over the last, when does it start, Gary? 2013?
Yeah, 2023 to September 21st of this year.
Okay, so the last 2 years, basically. And yeah, what you can see is a steady increase in power of sale. Now, let me tell you anecdotally from a phone call that I got this week, but I've got this same phone call several times over the last couple of years. And it was from a realtor who was involved with some clients who now need to sell their property. A realtor I'd never spoken to before in my life, but knows me because I teach at Toronto Real Estate Board and speak at ARIA. And he's reached out saying, Dion, I need some help. And the simple math was, Dion, my client's property is worth 1.1. They paid 1.4. And the mortgage owing is $1 million. And right now, could we get some refinancing on this property? And the answer is a hard no. And it's a hard no because there's just not enough equity in that property for that deal to transact. And when I dig a little deeper in these conversations, what I find out is that real estate agent who's calling me is the real estate agent who sold that person that property. And they had some other mortgage broker in the back end who helped them buy the property. And when I listen to the numbers, I go, that shouldn't be possible. That person should have never qualified for that property. They didn't have the income for it. They didn't have the down payment for it. Okay. And unfortunately, during the frenzy that was 2021, 2020 and 2021, people got taken advantage of. And there were some bad actors in our industry, Gary, who, got people into debts and transacted properties at prices that they should have never transacted at. Okay. That really did happen. And I think what you're seeing here is the back end of that happening, where those people who were sold something that was overvalued and overfinanced now finally getting to the point where it's like, no, I can't manage this anymore. And they're having to take it back to market.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's dig a little deeper on that. And one of our favorites here, Dan, he dives in and you jumped on this and why this is an important tidbit as well. Ran the numbers, found that 80% of these power of sale are being initiated by private lenders. Okay, first, just remind us quickly for those that are just jumping on what a private lender is, and then talk to us why this is so important.
All right. Private lenders are where you go when nobody else will lend you money. Okay. So in the world of lending, there's effectively 3 levels of of mortgages. There's A lending, B lending, and then private lending. Okay. And so when you go to a private lender, it means that the first 2 levels said no. which means that you don't qualify. It means you're underqualified from income, equity, or a credit perspective. So your profile is weak on one of these, one or multiple of these things. And of course, that means that you are probably one of the people who are going to be most vulnerable to changes in the market, changes in interest rates. And this purple section of the graph there, Gary, that pie chart shows the total number of power of sales. The purple section is power of sales initiated by private lenders, which makes sense, right? Because these lenders are dealing with the least qualified borrowers in the market, and the least qualified are the first to default, the first to need to exit their properties.
It is interesting. We're going to keep our eye on this, of course, over the next several months, and we know, people that purchase homes in 2020 and 2021, those homes or those mortgages are up for renewal, or that term has to be renewed, and so forth, which typically means new interest rates and things like that. And I know you've been working with some of your clients based on what that looks like. And Dion, what perhaps we should do in future, because we've done this over our calls over those several years, is perhaps coach our viewers when they get that renewal letter, what to talk about and how to ask better questions when they get the renewal letters from their lenders. But we'll do that in another video. Dion, remind us how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, at kangamortgage.ca or Instagram at the Dion Beg.
There you have it, my friends. That's Dion Beg. Of course, I'm Gary McGowan. We'll see everybody in the next episode. Goodbye for now.